Yeah, something interesting happened in my life. And I met this guy, Chris Gardner, from the movie Pursuit of Happiness, if you remember, with Will Smith. So I got to meet the actual guy. It's a true story, as you know. And this guy, he flew in. I guess I should mention him on the podcast as well, because maybe he'll see this as well. And he had a huge influence on my life. He probably at that moment didn't even realize the the impact he was having. So I told him, he said to me, so, how do you do what you do? And I said, well, I'm a broker, and, it's typical of private wealth. So a husband and wife would come, and I'd sit down with them, and I'd show them their risk profile or their rate of return or, mutual fund portfolio. So Jawad, what he said to me actually had a huge impact. And there's one thing that I can share with you on the podcast, which I keep reminding myself, and then obviously anybody that I work with and my team, even my own children, is manifestation, is power of visualization. So he told me a few things which completely changed the way I used to do my appointments. So after I came back from Tahiti, people would sit down, husband and wife would come. So the first question I'd ask them, I'd say, so guys, what do you want to do? So they'd say, well, we want to invest money. And I'd say, well, why do you invest money? They'd say, we want to make money. I said, well, why do you want to make money? And something would happen, Jawad. Half of them would say, I don't know.
I don't know.
The other half would say, I want to buy a house. And I'd say, what kind of a house? And they'd say, I don't know. I never thought about that. So I take a pen and I start drawing their house. I say, what color bedroom? What part of the city? Swimming pool in the back? How many bedrooms? And you'd see their body language shift from arms crossed, legs crossed, sleazy broker, going to sell me something, to edge of their seat, leaning forward. And then they would ask me the question, how much money do we need to give you to get to this? Because this stupid little painting, Jawad, was a manifestation, was a visualization of their success. Nobody had done it for them. And the funniest thing, Jawad, I wish I'd recorded it for today, over 100 times, right? When they'd get up to leave, they'd say, can we take this little paper with us? That stupid little drawing. Because that was visualization of their success. So what I understood, Jawad, those days, was that the mutual fund, the investment, the mortgage was the painful process through which people had to go through to get to their vision of success. The vision of success was not a rate of return. The vision of success was that house where they could invite their friends and have people who'd come. And so it was a transformational moment in my life where I realized that people who have a very clear vision of what success looks like usually find a way to get there. And if we do not know what success looks like, then we will be successful and not know it. And to your point, a long-winded answer, but I think it's important to set the narrative. Because I had this in my mind, when I got to Dubai and effectively I had a clean slate, I tried to think, what would success look like? And I promise you, as honestly as I can, every single one of those things that I had visualized, right? So now I think I should have visualized maybe a private jet or something, but every one of those things I'd visualized in some shape, way, or form started happening. And without going too deep dive, because when it started happening, I was like, this cannot be true. There's a great book that I would advise everyone to read, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, where she talks about the laws of attraction. So the example that she gives is that when you're thinking of buying the car that you have right now, or you were thinking of buying the car before you bought it, remember how many of those cars you started noticing on the road. Did these cars not exist before? Of course they did. But your eyes see what you allow them to see. And I think if there's one thing, again, that I like to share with people, whoever is listening, whoever will listen, is that, focusing on what we have in our life is better than focusing on what we don't have, because what you focus on becomes bigger. So people who talk about things they don't have in their life most of the time, the coffee break, the smoke break conversation becomes about the problem with the boss, the problem with the country, the problem with the economy. Their life is full of things they don't have. And people who talk about things they have in their life is full of things they have. From a Quranic reference, we know that نَعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ, which is the more you speak about, the more zikr you make of the good things in your life, the good things grow. So just a little bit about manifestation, I guess.
So what's the practical implementation of manifestation? If I wanted to say manifest a bigger business, a better relationship with my family.
That's it.
First of all, I think the interesting part in this is a lot of people don't know what they want. ठीक है? In the sense that when you say, I want a successful business, what is a successful business? I think defining that is very important. I was listening to a podcast recently, and a very famous guy. So he was doing a conference in a college, and he said, who wants to be rich?
Yeah,
And everybody raised their hand.
of course.
And he said, how much will you have that will make you rich? And nobody had the answer to
course,
that, right? Because we are always thinking कि ये एक state, it's a state of mind कि जी I am rich and I've got everything, but there is no limitation to it, right? When you look at people like Elon Musk, there's going to be somebody else who's going to be richer than him very soon. And what is being rich, right? आपको सक्सेस भी इसी तरीके से होती है कि सक्सेस को भी आपको पहले ये समझना है कि सक्सेस है क्या.
That's it, yeah.
जब तक आप इसको डिफाइन नहीं कर सकते तो फिर आप उसकी मैनिफेस्टेशन नहीं कर सकते. मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग मैनिफेस्टेशन को ये लेके है.
So slight, not disagreement, but a caveat. I think the first stage for many of us, for our brain, because it's so underdeveloped, the right brain. I mean, you meet senior C-suite executives in boardrooms, and if the CEO says, all right, guys, I need us to come up with a creative, innovative solution to something, you see blank faces, right? Again, because we'd rather keep doing what we've done in the past. Tony Robbins says, if you work the same way for 10 years, you haven't worked 10 years, you worked your first year 10 times. And I always give the example as an interesting example because I think you can learn a lot from it. Remember Kodak? Remember Kodak, the company? Yes. Kodak?
The camera.
Not to judge your age or anything or my age, but remember Kodak. So in 1997, Kodak had close to 87% of the world's market share of film. And in 2010, they declared bankruptcy, right? So there were consultants like me in suits and ties telling them that, the digital camera is coming. So what happened to Kodak? So if you read the Harvard Business Review case studies, it's not like they did not know that the digital camera is coming. But Jawad, imagine being in that boardroom where you have 87% of the world's market share of something. You're making money, you're doing well. Imagine being the contrarian in that room who says, you know what, let's stop making film. Nobody would say it, Jawad. It's just easier to go with the flow. So to go back to what you said, I think the first bit, I think for many of us, because our brains of visualization, the areas, the muscles that we need to use are so underdeveloped, don't even bother with defining. I think that's a second stage. The second stage is to be able to define. The practical way, you asked me how it's practically done. First of all, meditation. It's a big part. Now, whether meditation comes from a spiritual perspective, whether for people at salah or prayer or going to church or a temple or a mosque, whatever it is, or people who just practice deep breathing, what they call diaphragm breathing, which is before you go to bed, you lie down on the floor and for 15 minutes, you practice deep breathing and you keep your mind focused on the now. And when you do that, what will happen is that, as you know, in a couple of minutes, your brain will wander and it'll go on Sheikh Zayed Road, it'll go to Business Bay, it'll go to, it'll wander around, it'll go on the cricket field for people like you and I. But if you could kind of keep bringing yourself to the now, and you keep your focus on where it's supposed to be, what will happen is in a few days, your mind will not go as much. These are neural pathways that develop, which keep us in the moment. So I think that ability to stay in the moment, do the deep breathing meditation is a precursor to great manifestation. The other practical tip I can share, Jawad, is to write things down. Something magical happens, Jawad. I don't know how, I'm not smart enough to explain it. Something magical happens when you write things. You almost bring it into reality. And again, somebody taught me this stuff many, many years ago, and I started writing some of the stuff down. And sometimes when I go back and I reflect on those, I cannot believe how much of it's come true. And again, I'm not saying that everything is hunky-dory and I've got my own challenges and every business does and so on. But it's basically somewhere in my subconscious, in my preconscious brain, that there were these kind of things parked. And when I came into that fork in the road where I had to take a left or a right, somewhere my subconscious guided me. It kept telling me, this is not how we want things to be. You're not going to end up. I believe, Jawad, Allah's greatest gift to us is between our two ears. I think it's already preconditioned to take us, it's the route is set. It's like the GPS map is there. We just need to kind of put in the directions and destination. But Jawad, when we get to that fork in the road where you have to quit that job, you have to take that risk, you have to leave that relationship, you have to get into that relationship, I think that is the moment of truth. So if I could summarize, Jawad, I think when that moment comes, when your unconscious, your subconscious brain, it tells you, take a lap. It's the harder thing to do. Take a lap. Drop that relationship. It's toxicity in your life. It's negativity. Begin that job. Start that business. Go leave the country. Go somewhere. When it gives you the signal, you gotta go for it. You gotta go for it. Like that's that moment. So you ask the difference between doing and thinking. I think it's risk taking. It's fear management. Again, I think the tragedy of our education system is nobody's speaking about this, Jawad. Did we learn emotional intelligence in school, Jawad?
No.
Did we learn fear management and risk management? Did we learn creativity, innovation? Did we learn leadership in school? And subhanAllah, these days you hear people from all over the world, and especially in our country, saying, we have no leaders. Yeah, because we killed them in school. That's why we killed them in school. We've got great followers. We've got hundreds and thousands of great followers, millions. Was that 250 million? How many are we now? We're quite a few now. So we've quite a few followers, very few leaders, because we killed them in school. So practical ways to visualize manifestation is to read the books like The Secret and The Laws of Attraction, then to meditate and visualize, and then to write down what success would look like.
When I write it down, do I also need to see it every day? Do I need to keep it in front of me so I know that this is my goal?
It's interesting. I think all of us, we don't give our brain enough credit. I actually think your brain will make you think about it. I think when we were talking about why meditation. So because meditation fires up the neural pathways which allow then the visualization to take place. Because look at and I am guilty as anyone, life is so cluttered, Jawad. We're all trying to fit into our lives so much. What's the first thing we look at, Jawad, when we wake up in the morning? Our phone.
Yes.
What's the last thing we look at before we go to bed?
Our phones.
And I am absolutely 100% guilty. I was saying to someone the other day, I said, I think I have about 140 conversations every day. And you can imagine how much of that focus of mine it takes away. So I am by no means a finished product. So I am consciously incompetent. I know what I don't know. But what happens then is when the brain is fired up, the neural pathways are engaged. When you visualize, your brain already knows how to take you from where you are to where you want to be. It will send you signals. It'll tell you. You know what the signals are, Jawad? We'll struggle with sleep. We'll get edgy. We'll be horrible to be around. And Jawad, those people who are closest to us in our lives, maybe our parents, or our siblings, or our loved ones, they will point out to us, Jawad, they will tell us, they'll say, you're not the person you used to be. You're edgy all the time. Why are you so stressed? And some people, God forbid, it manifests itself in health issues. You've got most nutritionists in the world will tell you that weight gain is a direct reflection of hormonal levels. Under high levels of stress and anxiety, cortisol, your body says, change is coming, winter is coming, store energy, store fat. And by the way, where it stores fat? Around the area of the body it wants to protect the most, like the heart and the liver. That's why you find sometimes perfectly fit people with fatty livers, because they've been exposed to high levels of cortisol and stress over a long period of time. So I think when the signals are sent by the brain, and in our life we get those signals, the ability, Jawad, then to listen to those signals, right? The ability to kind of tap in to say, well, why is my wife or my kids saying what they're saying? Do I trust these people? So a little bit later on, we'll talk about relationships. And I'll tell you, again, not a finished product myself, especially when my wife listens to this, she's going to be like, what are you talking about? But one of the things in relationships I think we all need to do is if we have got those people in our life that we can trust to pack our parachute, we've got those relationships in our life, then when they give us some feedback, Jawad, the single biggest thing I think that at a very high level, at kind of C-suite kind of level in life or board of governors kind of level, the one thing that I think a lot of C-suite executives struggle with, and we do a lot of individual coaching, one-on-one and leadership sessions, they say, no one gives me feedback. So it's lonely at the top, right? So nobody will come to see you and say, what are you talking about? You don't make any sense. You're making a mistake. One of my friends told me, he said, I could be sitting in my boardroom and I could say in Dubai in June, I could say, it's beautiful weather outside. And people would say, Gigi said, nobody would say, are you insane? It's 50 degrees outside. But so nobody gives them feedback. So I think listening, when those moments in our life come, when we have the opportunity to take a left or a right turn, just the ability to take feedback in life from tried, tested, trusted relationships is critical.
Thank you, Umar, for sitting with us, for giving us all of this knowledge, sharing it with everybody on the podcast, with us as well. It's always a pleasure meeting you, sitting down with you.